Hi and welcome to the SohoLIFF Spotlights. I'm really excited to be sat here today with the incredible Neil Marshall. Now, Neil has just made the most wonderful films. I mean, some of the classics are Dog Soldiers, my favourite ever horror film, The Descent, which is just utterly brilliant, as well as some really mainstream incredible things like Game of Thrones and Westworld. I mean, you have done lots of stuff, haven't you?
I suppose I've been kicking around Soho for quite a while now, coming up to 25 years or something like that. So it's 20 years since Dog Soldiers came out, 21 years actually now. So I've been around the block a few times for sure.
Cool. We're very glad you have been.
Yeah, just the fact that I'm still managing to make films now and so ever is it's a rare privilege.
Yeah. And I mean, let's go right back to the beginning, because that with people like George Lucas and Scorsese, started out as an editor, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is it about being an editor that makes a good director, do you reckon?
I think it's kind of essential that every director should try editing and learn editing as a process. I know, there are plenty of other directors. David Lean was an editor before he became a director as well, and I just think it gives you an insight into how a film is constructed and what's needed, what's not needed, and certainly when working on lower budget films, when you don't have all the time to get everything that you'd like, to pick and choose to get the best bits that you're going to be able to cut together. And so if you're able to kind of sort of edit it as you're filming it in your head, know how things are going to cut together and things like that, I think that's it's an invaluable tool for a director.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's also like knowing, because quite often a director will look for the perfect take and keep on going, 12, 13, 15 takes to get the perfect take. And I don't look at it that way at all. I'm looking for the moments, because I know I'm not, unless it's a wanna, then you're not going to use all the take every time. I'm looking for the best performances, best bits, and I'll use that line from that take or that look from this take, and I'm piecing that together as I'm shooting it. So by the time I get to when I know I've got everything, then I can move on. And that's when you're working against the clock, which we all are. that kind of thing is really invaluable. Yeah.
That's really interesting, actually. I'd never thought of it like that. And did you start writing? Like, was that you started editing after leaving college and then started writing?
I started doing everything when I was like 11 years old, when I started making little films on 8mm with my friends, and I wouldn't exactly call it writing. We came up with ideas for things, went out, shot them, edited them, put music to them, did special effects and things like that. Built props and everything, and that was we had our little film school there, which was again it's all the process of learning, especially when you're cutting on 8mm film with little like sellotape and glue, and it's really back to basic stuff, which is long gone now. It's like, God, to think then of like what you can do on an iPhone. It's astonishing.
Yeah.
So but that was what it was then, and we learned the process. And I think I was a teenager when I wrote my first feature script. I'd read William Goldman's Adventures in the Screen Trade, amazing book about writing in Hollywood, and I was inspired by that and thought, let's give it a go, and just started churning out really, really shit script, just for the hell of it, just to think, but what you learn from that process is you're seeing the films in your head constantly, and although I never got to make any of those films and probably never should, I can see them in my head. If I think about them, I can see the movies. So I was writing then, and then I went to film school.
Right.
This was in the early 90s, and first studied animation. They only had one place available, and it was on the animation course, and all I wanted to do was get on the course. So I was just like, I'll do animation. So I did it for about a year, and then I managed to move over into the other things.
Right.
But they had edit suites and cameras and stuff, and so I for my graduation film, I edited that myself. Because I'd moved up from 8mm onto videotape, U-matic videotape and things like that. And it was one of those things as well, was like they had 16mm cameras, but they were always being booked by other people. Whereas they had a video camera that nobody wanted to use. And I said, well, for my film, I just want to use that because I want it for like 2 weeks to shoot my film and get more time out of it. And then it'll be straight into the edit and do it that way. So I made this zombie movie for my graduation film, a zombie action thing called Brain Death, and from that we had a screening at a local cinema of all our. We had like the graduation night was everybody screened their movies and had a big party and things like that, and some local producers up in Newcastle. Were there, and off the back of it they said, do you want some editing work? And I basically started editing freelance then just to pay the rent.
Oh, wow.
So this was like 1992. And I spent the next 10 years, 10 years pretty much, editing as to pay the rent while I was writing and trying to get directing gigs, things like that.
So was that then when you started like making shorts?
Yeah, there was some arts funding, Arts Council funding and stuff like that available. And there was some on local television as well. They were doing some schemes of like giving people short films to direct up in Newcastle. So I managed to do one of those, and I got some money to make a short film called Combat.
Right.
Which actually worked very well in sort of setting up dog soldiers and just showing people that I could actually make a film.
And so tell me about short films then, because I mean obviously that's a skill in itself. What did you learn from short films that helped you move on to the rest of your career?
Well, short films are an art form unto themselves, absolutely, but they're also a good way for aspiring directors to sort of practice their craft, because as a director and kind of like as an actor, you don't get to practice your craft. You're either doing it or you're not doing it. You can't like go out and practice being a director. You're just like, boom, done. You're on the set one day and suddenly everybody's staring at you and you've got to do what you do. So the short films is just a very achievable way of doing that. They take less money, less time. It's so much more achievable to just try and tell. And if you can learn to tell a story in a short film, then you've got a good advantage of like knowing you can tell a story in a bigger film. But yeah.
And so from there, you then did a feature where you, was it Killing Time? Yeah. How did that come about?
Well, that was actually before Combat, but that was 1995, and it was the same group of people. There was a little community at the time of aspiring filmmakers in Newcastle. There was a TV industry at the time there as well, so Tyne Tees Television, and so people from there, and we'd all kind of gathered, and we all just wanted to make a feature film. And so it was the director was Barrett Naluri, who is now gone on. He's like really successful TV director in the States and things like that. He's done a lot of things. A producer called Richard Johns, and Sam McCurdy, who later go on and shoot my first 4 features as a DP, and various people like that. And a lot of people from that experience are now working in the business and have been for the past 25 years, which is wonderful. But at the time it was like, so they said, let's make a movie. It'll be like a deferral film where like we basically all do it for free and we might get some money back. We never did, but whatever.
Yeah, we all heard that chestnut, haven't we? It's like
yeah. I mean, the film got picked up and it did get some kind of weird release, but I think we got about 30 quid or something at the end of it. But at that point it was kind of like we just want to do it for the love of doing it. So I co-wrote it with another couple of friends. I storyboarded it. I was the action coordinator. I was the editor. I was kind of just an on-set person that would just be there for like anything that was going on. At one point, because it was made under such ridiculous circumstances, like I think we did a 25-hour day one day, non-stop filming for 25 hours, and things like that. I mean, we had all sorts of crazy shit go down. We had like sending out the runners to get pizzas in the middle of the night, and like they would get mugged, and things like that. Or we had to, our armourer had a car and that got broken into, and then the police came in. We had to abandon a set in a really rough part of Newcastle because all these kids showed up and started trying to nick all our gear. And when we tried to stop them, they all started pelting us with rocks. So we had to, a riot started, and we had to abandon the set in the middle of the night. It was just crazy, but an incredible learning experience.
Yeah, I bet.
Absolutely vital learning experience. The director passed out one morning, and so I had to step in and direct for like half a day, which was like, for me, I was like, yes.
Had you slipped in something?
Something in his coffee. And just crazy stuff like that. It was an insane adventure. And I wish I could say that the film like really like stood up to it. It's a terrible film.
It was the foundation though, wasn't it? Because it was after that you then, now, am I right in saying you wrote, directed and edited Dog Soldiers?
Yeah. Well, so one thing that happened on the set of Killing Time was myself and Keith Bell, who was the production manager on it, and I'd known, we'd been together in film school, sat on set one day, we're like watching the chaos ensue, and said, I think that we can do this better and where people get paid and we do a proper movie. And he was like, yeah, I think so too. And that was the origin of Dog Soldiers, like right there. We just sat there. Later on, I came up with the idea. I was like, this is what I want to do. It's like soldiers versus werewolves. And I think we went up to Scotland. Oh, he was working in Glasgow at the time for a production company there. And I went up to visit him, and we went out and got completely pissed and wrote a little contract on a napkin in a pub that he would produce Dog Soldiers and I would direct it. We both signed it, and I've got it somewhere. And that was the agreement to do that, and that was the beginning of that journey.
Wow.
Which would take us the next 6 years to actually get the money together and get the production together and make it, but we did it in the end.
And I mean, it went on. It's cult status, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
no, I'm really proud of it. Really proud of it. What it's become, and you know.
I mean, when was the moment that you realised that it was a cult film?
Possibly when it played at the first festivals and things like that. I mean, I was happy with it. I knew it had something to it.
Yeah.
And when we had a cast and crew screening, which might have been here actually back in the day, the response to it was amazing. Everybody was really happy. But then when we played, I think it was the Brussels BIFF festival, horror festival, and we won like the 2 top awards, and I was like, wow, okay, I think maybe got something on our hands here.
Yeah.
And then we got picked up by Pathé, and they gave it an amazing release, and it went on from there. But it was quite a wild ride.
I mean, everyone knows Dog Soldiers. It's like, I mean, that's pretty cool for your first feature.
The thing was, I made it primarily. I said I kind of made it as like, this is the film that you watch when you come home from the pub on a Friday night. You sit with the lads, you watch a movie, or better still, it was just like made with the for the troops to watch. I thought like I want, and it turned out to be like a staple thing that all the troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. I heard that they just had the tape on loop all the time. And I was like, oh, God, I'd literally watch it with a bunch of them. That would be great. But yeah, so that was the thing.
So, I mean, would it be fair to say that you, like people like Tarantino, are a genre director?
Definitely.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
And was that something you set out to
Whatever
do?
that actually means
I
anymore.
know, but it's... I mean, did you kind of go, this is what I want to work in, or was it just making films that you want to watch?
It was kind of making films I want to watch, and it was based around the films that I love as well. It's like I was just drawn to that kind of thing. So I just made the films I wanted to watch primarily.
Yeah, and why is that important to you?
I don't know, because I kind of figured that, well, if at least I want to watch it, maybe somebody else might want to watch it too. No, I certainly want to make films that other people want to watch, but it's just like I'm trying to do things that nobody else is doing, so therefore it's like nobody else was doing a Soldiers and Werewolves movie, so I was like, well, I should do it myself.
And then of course after that you went on to make, and it still is my favourite horror film, is The Descent. I mean, that was when your awards started flowing, wasn't it? Because
that was interesting time for sure. It was amazing.
Oh yeah, because that one, what was it, the British Independent Film?
Yeah.
And the Saturn Award as well.
Yeah. Empire and
Yeah. I mean, how important are awards and festivals to you?
well, they're a tremendous kind of morale booster, that's for sure. No, it's a lovely reward to when you put the work in and that people think of it that highly. It's astonishing that you get to win some kind of award from your peers or from a jury or whatever it may be. But it's no, it makes me incredibly proud of what I've managed to achieve with that. Making a film that was both kind of a critical and commercial success was. I never saw that coming.
I can remember my sister all those years ago, oh my God, I've watched this film, you've got to watch it. It's just like, it's perfect. It's like everything that they do, you would do.
Yeah.
It's like, you believe it, everything's there. It hit everything.
Absolutely. I wanted to make the characters realistic, and I really, in making that decision to have an all-female cast, it was really important to me that the characters should therefore be realistic and
bright
dynamic and smart and and not just cannon fodder, as it were, and not be there as just like for titillation purposes. It was like I wanted to make them and horror's kind of got a reputation for that, because there's kind of two sides to horror. There's the really kind of quality side to horror, and there's a really sleazy side to horror as well, and I never wanted to be part of the sleazy side to horror. I wanted to move into that, but I didn't also, you asked about genre. I never wanted to be seen as just a horror director, but that was a great way in, because I think, Dog Soldiers is like an action movie, comedy, horror. It's got all sorts of elements.
Yeah.
Descent is straight up horror. There's no getting around that, but that was a choice. I wanted to make something truly terrifying. That was the plan, and be relentless about it, and people responded to that.
Yeah, they really did. And I suppose, was it at that point that you knew this is what you're doing now for the rest of your life, being a director?
I was fully committed from day one. I couldn't do anything else. I don't know what else I'd be capable of doing. Especially now, but even then I was like, no, I was single-minded in my desire to do this. And anybody who's knows me knows that as well.
Yeah.
Since the age of 11, I was like, I have to do this. Don't know how. You're a little kid growing up in Newcastle. Hollywood is a long way away.
Yeah.
Hell, London was a long way away. Soho was a long way away. But that was the dream, and I've just relentlessly pursued it. So by then it was kind of like, well, though even now it's like, I'm sure my parents are still like, when are you going to get a real job? Something that they can comprehend. But certainly back then it was like, this is nice. When are you going to get a real job?
Yeah, we do hear that in this industry.
We do.
And how important is the independent sector within the film world to you?
I think it's absolutely essential.
Why?
Well, as a place to foster new talent, more than anything, it's like, because it's slap bang kind of between massive mainstream cinema and what is now streaming television, etc., etc. The independent film market has always where did we get our Scorseses? Where did we get our Tarantinos? They came from the independent film world, and how are we going to find our next generation of those directors? If not just to have an opportunity for them to come in and make experimental, interesting, dynamic, whatever the hell it is, but their own films, and show their voices. This really scares me, the idea that independent cinema could ever die, because I worry that who are the next generation of amazing directors. Because now when we refer to a lot of the great directors, we are talking about people who've been around for a while, as opposed to people who are new on the scene. So I don't know. It worries me, but I'm confident that it's not going to die, because I don't think filmmakers will allow it to die. No. Somehow we'll get the films made.
Festival.
That'd be a good
Soho
idea
to support them.
That's what they should do. Great idea.
So you love your action, don't you? I mean, you love to blow stuff up.
Well, I think primarily I always think of myself as an action director, or not a horror director, because I try and get action into everything I do somewhere.
Which is
so
great.
Blow shit up is good.
So it is. It's brilliant. And how does that, when you're on set working with that, where does the inspiration come from?
I don't know. It's just a buzz. but it's it's just it comes from the need in the script or the need in the story for something like that. But I like the fact that it brings a sense of danger to the set. Things get very serious, and you have the professionals come in, and everything's handled very serious. But then but it's also excitement, and But you want that to translate to the audience.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, it does, the stuff you make.
Because I think the first on Dog Soldiers, when we blew up the farmhouse at the end of the film, I remember I'm still rolling or whatever, and I caught myself that I was absolutely laughing my head off because I was just so kind of giddy from this blast wave hitting me. It was just like, this is so thrilling, the adrenaline. And then I was like, caught myself and like, oh yeah, cut.
Is it the big budgets for that, or is it the choreography? Is there like an art form to really make it work?
It's totally an art form. I mean, anybody can, in a film or whatever, not anybody can blow shit up, but like plenty of films have, but there's an art form to trying to make it be impactful still. Because we've seen 1,000,001 explosions in movies now. Nothing new. But then if you go back and you watch somebody like Antonioni, and I reference this in Dog Soldiers, have you ever seen Zabriskie Point?
I don't know that I have.
Okay, well, watch the house explosion in Zabriskie Point.
With Harrison Ford?
No.
No? Okay.
No, I don't think so. Unless he was a kid. But no, watch the house blowing up at the end of Zabriskie Point. And
Right.
he turned explosions into an art form.
Right.
And that's mentioned in Dog Soldiers.
How did you learn that, though? Do you work with like stunt coordinators or a choreographer or?
Yes, absolutely, all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was inspired by watching Peckinpah,
Right.
The Wild Bunch.
Right.
The shootout at the end of that film is like it's a work of art. It's a ballet of death, and it's beautiful, and that definitely rubbed off on me. And I always tried to kind of make something that would be even remotely like akin to something like that would be a hell of an achievement.